Today I'm going to answer a viewer's question about why apples are not easy to paint. So let's get started. So I have some apples and they are fake apples because I don't keep regular apples around for very long. I should explain that I've already drawn the apples. You can see them there, and ignore the color dabs on the left. Yeah, that'll go away. All right, so the question that Laura had was, why are apples hard to paint? Well, there are two reasons why they're hard to paint. One is because they're shiny, but I think that's the lesser reason. The reason that they're hard to paint is that, especially delicious apples, is because they are all one color. They are the color red, and the red is a midtone. And it's harder to find your darks, mediums, and lights when you have to find them all in one color and all on one form. And that is why apples are hard. So what I'm doing first is I'm putting in the underlying notan, the N-O-T-A-N. This is the underlying pattern of darks that are going to unite the shapes of these apples. And I've mixed up a color that is going to keep me in the red spectrum. I could have done this with a really dark color. I could have done it with a blue or a really deep purple. But remember, we're talking about painting red apples. So everything has to be red. So this still is in the red spectrum. I should also say I'm using a very large brush to do this. It's like a number 12 flat because I wanted to demonstrate in the simplest way that I could, in terms of visually the simplest way that I could, what those forms look like. All right, now I'm going to put in the lighter forms. And again, this is on the red spectrum. So I've taken some cadmium red and added some Naples yellow to it, and I'm going to leave the whites of the paper white. Now I could have used masking fluid or something like that, but I tend to not do that. Now, if you watch the way the brush moves, and if you can see the drawing underneath, I didn't draw the surface of the apples. I think that's where people get into trouble, is they look at the surface. And what you really need to paint are the contours of the apple, where that apple changes planes, where it shifts in, where it bulges out, very similar to a face. So try not to be distracted by the surface and try to look for those different planes, any area where things shift or change. Now I'm putting in the midtones. Now I did this to describe so that you could see easily the darks, the mediums, and the lights with as few strokes as possible. If I was doing this as a real painting, I would have taken way more time with this, but the theory is still the same. I want to carve that apple with my eyes using only the spectrum of red. So that's what's happening here. All right, dry everything. And as you can see, it doesn't look unified. And it's not going to look unified right now because I didn't do this the way I usually do it, really strategically building my different colors up value to value, because I wanted you to be able to see all the way through it and at the end that shifts in value and those changes. Now I'm going to put in the darkness underneath. It's always darker where the form meets another plane, so it's always going to be dark right underneath the apple, and I use triad work for that shadow rather than a gray. All right, now to unify things, I can take a color like, what did I use? Oh, probably alizarin crimson, and make a slight wash of it, and now go over all those forms that I have underneath. That will start to unify the shapes. It's not going to change the value. That's what's really important here. When you're going to do a second coat, especially of a color that is one you've already used and used as your midtone, it's not going to change the value at all. And you can look at that through a value finder. The value didn't change, but the unity of forms did. But you can still see really clearly the underlying structure of those apples. And that's what I wanted to emphasize. You are not painting the apple, you are painting the structure or the architecture of the apple. So try not to look at the surface. I'm putting in just some color spots of value for my darkest darks there. Again, the whole point was to keep this as simple as possible. And I'll probably do another painting this week where I really slow it down and do some apples as if I'm doing them for real. This was for strictly for demonstration. There you go. As few strokes as possible, finding the underlying dark patterns, finding the light patterns, and then unifying them with the midtones, and that will give you the form and shape of an apple. But the challenge of the apple is that it is all red. So you have to find the value and shift and planes on a red form, and that is why apples are difficult. All right, Thanks for watching. Please join my YouTube channel, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.